All right, we are going to go ahead and get started. Just got to cut this one short today. But good morning, everybody. Welcome to our market of the moment. Thank you all for being here. Hope you all had a great evening, great night, and a great week so far. Um, we always start out with a rose and a thorn. So if I can just get at least get maybe two of you with one thing you're grateful for and one challenge.
I'll hop in. I had two great appointments this week or yesterday, so I'm waiting on some buyer agreements to be signed, and I don't really feel like I have any sucks right now. So that's,
That's
a blessing.
that's actually awesome. Great. I'm so glad to hear that. Thank you. Thank you for sharing. Who else? One thing you're grateful for.
I'm grateful to be here with you guys full time today.
Yes, let's go. Let's
Yes,
go.
yes. And my one would probably be time management.
Time management. We're gonna get that started today.
Good, great.
Yes, it starts with getting started, number one. And then two, just staying consistent and being involved. It
Right.
sounds easy, but it is definitely not, but it does take some persistence and commitment from you. So thank you for even speaking up. I appreciate that. All right. We are gonna jump into, I want to show you a quick video, and I want you all to pay close attention. Let me.
I went and I started talking to researchers who were studying communication. I asked them, why am I getting into this pattern? And they said, well, you're making a mistake. We're living through this golden age of understanding communication, really for the first time, because of advances in neural imaging and data collection. And they said one of the big things that we've learned is that we tend to think of a discussion as being just one conversation, right? We're talking about one thing, my day, or the kids' grades, what to have for dinner. But what they said is that actually each discussion contains many different conversations. And in general, these conversations tend to fall into one of three buckets. There's these practical conversations where we're talking about what's this all about? What are we really discussing? But then there's emotional conversations where we're talking about how do we feel? And my goal is to share with you my feelings, and I don't want you to solve them. I want you to empathize. And then there's conversations that are social conversations about who we are, the social identities that are important to us, how we relate to each other and how we relate to society. And what the researchers said is what we've learned is that if people are having different conversations at the same moment, they can't really hear each other. They can't really connect. And in fact, this is exactly what was happening with me and my wife, right? I was coming home and having an emotional conversation. My wife was responding with a practical conversation. They are both legitimate conversations, but because we weren't having the same conversation at the same moment, we weren't really communicating with each other. And within
Hmm. All right. What'd you guys hear from that? Give me a couple of ahas. Anything that stuck out to you about conversations?
Somebody gotta listen.
Somebody got to listen. I like
Well,
it.
I think it goes back to, we all have our own thoughts and we all process things differently. What one can perceive as one thing, as somebody else is perceiving it a totally different way. And our lines can completely get crossed if we're not clearly communicating with each other in the same exact way and knowing that we're perceiving each other in the same way as well.
Oh, love it. Love it. Love it. Anybody else?
I've got a potential buyer who, every time we have a conversation, she does not have an agent. She has a lawyer. So I'm answering questions for both sides. But regardless, every conversation we have, she ends up oversharing and revealing so much more than you would want your buyer client to share. So I'm trying to have one conversation with her about these terms, and we're finding out, how much money they really have and how much they could really offer and all these other things.
Mm, love it. Sabrina?
Yeah, I think well, what I took away from that too is sometimes we don't listen to fully understand. We just listen and we don't really try to fully understand or discern what exactly is being communicated. So,
Yeah. Yeah. And how detrimental to our business is all of this, right? Communication. We're talking about we're in a real estate business where it's all about relationships and building connection and building trust, right? So, from this, focus on emotions, not just facts. Like focus on, getting them to an emotional state, right? And I think that misalignment, if you heard them say it, so they're just not on the same page. One person's having a conversation about one thing and the other is receiving it another way. So that it's that misalignment and it stalls that connection, which really means that, there is no connection, which means they're not really getting your message, right? So in communication, you got a sender, a message, and a receiver. If the receiver doesn't receive the message the way that the sender intended, is it whose fault is it? Is it the sender's fault or is it the receiver's fault? Or is it the message? It depends. So we talked a lot this last week really about what type of content are you putting out and how are you communicating this content and these messages to our clients. We talk about all of the external forces that's out there, right? The market, what the interest rates are doing, what the housing supply is, what the home prices are, all things that you really can't control. But what you can control is how we communicate how to overcome those barriers, how to overcome those obstacles. And so the biggest thing here is really just to make sure that you are creating content that actually connects to people. You got to make content that's actually speaking to your target audience, your target demographic. And if you don't really have that identified, then maybe that's where you need to start. A lot of people don't. You just make general messaging for everybody, and it's not really reaching it's reaching the masses, but it's not really reaching the people that really need it. The person that's gonna pick up the phone and call you and say, you know what, I want to hear more. A lot of times, a lot of agents are sharing so much information that it gets diluted, and they don't really know what matters. If you got a whole, if you got a whole paragraph or a whole article, break that thing down. Break it down for them. Show them, hey, this is what it means for me, because that's what most people want to know. How does this impact me? Right? How does the interest rate? How do the rising interest rates impact me? How do the tariffs impact me? How do all of these different things? How does it impact me? But communication is really key. I want you all to really kind of focus on this over the next couple months. Just kind of rehashing your marketing strategy. Do you even have a marketing strategy? That's one, right? We also have a business plan, but in your business plan, you should also have a communications strategy or a marketing strategy. And communications and marketing are actually two different things. We use them interchangeably, but they are actually two different things. But either way, you got to have something. Got to have a method for which you're putting the content out, and you got to be consistent with the content that you are, and making sure that it's connecting to the demographic that you are targeting. A couple things I wanted to go over today is so last week. I was in Washington, D.C. at the National Association of Realtors D.C. legislative meetings, they call it. And essentially, we were on Capitol Hill. We was at the convention center for a lot of the conference, but every state went to Capitol Hill, went to their legislators to talk about issues, housing issues, and that type of stuff. There was a lot of things that they also shared a lot of data, and I wanted to bring this back to you all because I thought it was very interesting. So I think you all can see my screen. Um, so Fed rate cuts. They're essentially saying that I think, hold on, there's a 2026. There's a forecast. I think it's towards the end. I'll get to that later. But here's one of the big things that I wanted to bring up. So, did I miss it? Let me get to it. No, I see it. There we go. The 5-year home price gains since pre-COVID for South Carolina is 68.4. I'm gonna see if I can. Okay. Hopefully y'all can see. It's 68.4. The for South Carolina. For North Carolina, it's 68.9. So we both at 68% home gains in the nation over 5 years. So since COVID, we are, and I want to say we are, and Maine was actually 75. It's crazy. But 68%. Even Texas was only 50%. California was only 44%. But 68% is a lot. We are right in line with Florida. So what does that mean? So 5 years, over 5 years, we've gained in home prices 68%, 68.9% for North Carolina. What do y'all think that means? Somebody tell me, what does that
It's
mean to you?
increased equity for our clients if
Increase.
they're currently owners.
Yep. What else? Anything else? Increase equity for sure. How else does this affect us as real estate agents? Oh, I didn't hear.
Oh, okay. Buyers love Charleston.
Buyers love
That's
Charleston.
one of the buyers.
Very true. Very true. Anything else?
Well, to also chime in, it's also putting some people in a predicament where they're not able to buy houses because the prices have risen so much.
Right. There we go. That's it. So as much as this is great for for sellers or property owners, basically, this is also very detrimental to homeowners that are not necessarily able to get into homes because prices have risen so quickly, so fast. Um, Now I want to show you. Let me come back down a little bit. So I think I was on it. So now look at the job gains. So job gains from 5 years ago, North Carolina is 10.3%, South Carolina is 10.1%. So we're seeing a 68% increase in home prices, but really only a 10% in job gains and payroll, essentially, wages. What does that show you? What does that tell you?
Our incomes aren't keeping up with the cost of housing in the area.
Exactly. So how do you overcome that? Because these are things that we can't control, right? So how do you navigate and tell a buyer that this is still a good time to buy? What would you say?
If you can afford now, it would be a good time to purchase now. Excuse me,
Mm-hmm.
because of the increases that are, because of the historical trends with their
Right. That's good. What else? Anybody else?
Well, and at the same time, they're not going down. So you want to try to get them in while you can, because again, I've been told 4%, right? Annually 4% we're increasing. So even if we can get them in something, they're still going to start appreciating equity.
Yes. Yes. Love it. Here's another. So a lot of people are talking about pushing homeowners to pushing prospective homeowners to new construction to get a rate buy down, right? Or even, and it doesn't have to be new construction to do a rate buy down. Lenders are offering that, now, not every lender, but some lenders, right? But here's the difference of a monthly mortgage payment on a $400,000 loan at a 5.75% rate versus a 7% rate with a 380,000 loan. Now, basically, they're saying, hey, put the 20,000 towards the buy down versus the 20,000 off of the home price. Why is that?
Because if you buy down your rate, you're going to be paying less interest, which is going to be more than what you would save on the down payment portion.
Exactly. Exactly. Is anybody using, so this is a great slide actually to show, and I we are going to send these out to everybody, but this is something great to show. Is anybody like talking about, do you have this in your buyer consultation, or have you had to talk about like this difference to anybody? Anybody had this experience? And maybe if you haven't, will you now? I'm sure. Yeah.
Definitely.
Here's another one I thought was pretty cool. The median net worth between owners and renters. The renters are in red. So 2025, the median net worth of renters is $10,000. The median net worth of homeowners is about 430,000. Obviously, this is over, this is national, but it just shows you that real estate has a lot of equity. Equity appreciates, right? And your net worth is much more. These are things that we should be communicating to our clients. Um, Rates. I kind of wanted to get down to. Let's talking about the importance of staging. That was pretty cool. Days on market. I think we've already talked about that. I'm going to get to that in our numbers, and then just the forecast. So they are expecting a existing home sales forecast of 6%. Next year would be 11%. New home sales up 10%. Next year 5. A lot of that had to do with possibly the tariffs and maybe some decrease in production. Median home sale price roughly 3%. So not as fast, not as much as we've seen over the last 5 years. So people are saying, oh, housing prices are coming down, or it's like, no, it's just not appreciating as fast because we had a super inflated market. Mortgage rates should end in 2025 around 6.4, 2026, and I think they were saying in January 2025, oh I'm sorry, January 2026, we should be around 6.1 ish. And job gains, expecting a lot more job gains next year. um a lot of that had to do with people, I guess private and public, bringing people back into the office, obviously creating new jobs, that type of stuff. But I wanted to show you guys that the forecast, and um, renter survey I thought was pretty cool because um, just about let's say 15, 10, so 25, maybe 30% of people say that they either strongly prefer renting, or they're really indifferent about it. They don't really care whether they rent or not. That's actually pretty, I mean, whether they purchase or not, that's actually pretty sad. And obviously, a lot of people want to purchase, they just can't. And so our goal is really to get these people from, it's really to get everybody to home ownership, right? But it's really to get this close to 50% and this 22-ish percent to purchasing, but then educating this 30 to 35%, because they have no idea, or may not have an idea about the impact of purchasing a home. They don't really understand. They might need to see that net worth slide, right? They might need to see. We talked about this yesterday about how you can multiply their rent times 12 and say, hey, and if you did that for 2, 3 years, would you leave with that, close to that amount, or would you leave with your deposit? Huge difference. Huge difference. We always they talk a lot about rising interest rates, or interest rates are high. Well, rent's interest rate is 100%. The home ownership is 6, right? 6 or 7, somewhere in there, or even lower if you buy it down. So it's just the conversations that we're having, and remember, the communication, the delivery of it truly matters. So again, I wanted to show you guys these things. Our goal is really to go get the information, bring it back to you so that you can use it in a way that we could use it in a way that will increase your business for sure. I did want to, any questions about any of that? I wanted to bring up the numbers. Let me see. Stats. All right, so I'm gonna bring up our daily numbers and then we'll get out of here. All right, so in Charleston, we have so just totals, about 1,000 new listings, and then we have about 219 withdrawal and cancel. Again, remember H and I, so expire and withdrawal and cancel are opportunities. So 219, 162, that's a lot. Let me try to see if I can hide these real quick so I can bring the totals up. So, what is this? So if you guys can see, kind of just looking, and we only got until Tuesday. So Sunday, Monday, Monday's pretty light, right? Why would you think Mondays are pretty light for listing, but then you got on Tuesdays and even Thursdays is much higher? Does anybody list on Mondays or thought Mondays was a good time to list? Because apparently the market isn't saying that's a great day. Or maybe it is a good day because everybody else is listing on Thursday or on Tuesday, right? Moving over to and then close, we're essentially 649 just this month, and that is what about 60-ish 61 or 62% of our new listings, which means that we're closing a lot, but we also have a lot of price changes, 1263 in price changes over our new listings at 1058. That means that a lot of homes are overpriced, or agents aren't having deeper conversations with sellers and allowing them to, list at a higher price. If y'all remember, our Q1 recap said for Charleston that, we had to decrease about 5% in order to go pending. Well, not saying that everybody doesn't have those conversations, because sometimes we heard from another agent the other day. It's like, yeah, sometimes I will list a little higher, but in 14 days or 7 days or 21 days, we have that conversation that we're going to decrease to, a more whatever they wanted, whatever the listing agent probably suggested. So that's Charleston. Moving over to Charlotte. Charlotte's numbers. So Charlotte, we talked about why we didn't have numbers last week, but the 7-day totals, and this really encompasses the last week. So if we'll just focus on the totals here. 2911 new listings, but again, price reduction 4,000. Now that's huge in terms of the difference in the percentage between Charlotte and Charleston. But again, a lot of price reductions. And so people are having to go to get price reductions in order to get over the pending. So make sure, but a lot of expiring and a lot of withdrawing. So there's a lot of opportunity in Charlotte that you guys could capitalize on. And then lastly, on the back on the market, so many different reasons for back on the markets. Obviously inspection time, that could be an issue. Appraisal stuff can be an issue. It could just be buyer and or seller circumstances changing, whatever, what have you. There's a lot of activity going on, and all that these numbers are telling us is that the market is still moving. So when people say, the market's not good, people aren't selling, people aren't purchasing, the data doesn't show that. So please make sure you guys are getting these numbers, using these numbers to communicate your message, or to create your content, create your messaging, and move forward from there. Any questions? No, good. All right, so we do have so Charleston, we have team meeting today in Mount Pleasant at 12 to 1:30. So please, if you guys can make it out there, please do. And then we do have Splash Bash is still scheduled for tomorrow, excuse me, at 5:30. If you guys have people signed up, you have your tickets, make sure that you guys get out to Whirling Waters tomorrow. Other than that, so we only do these on Tuesday, Wednesdays, and Thursdays. So I hope you all have a great weekend. Thank you all for being here this morning. We'll see you all again next week, Tuesday, and Ben will talk about some listings and numbers and that type of stuff. But hope you all have a great weekend. Thank you for your time. Enjoy the rest of your day.
So thanks.
Thank you.